The year was 1606. Almost 2 decades after the English colonists at Roanoke had vanished, King James I granted the Virginia Company of London a charter for the purpose of establishing a permanent settlement on America's eastern seaboard. In December of 1606, about 100 men and a handful of boys, plus captains and crew members who were not settlers, set out for Virginia. They sailed on 3 ships, the Susan Constant, the Godspeed, and the Discovery. The voyagers reached the Chesapeake Bay in late April of 1607. On May 14th, they established the first permanent British settlement in America. It was an island along a great river. In honor of their king, the settlers chose the names Jamestown and James River. The first British colony was lost, but the British had arrived again, and this time, despite monumental challenges and great suffering, they were here to stay. By June 15, 1607, the Jamestown settlers had built a triangular fort, replete with artillery at each corner. 1 week later, Captain Christopher Newport took the Susan Constant and the Godspeed back to England for supplies. Among the settlers left behind, most had no farming experience. Many spent their days looking for gold. No adequate amount of land was cultivated. The settlers went hungry. They failed to build a fresh water well and resorted to drinking from the James River, salty at high tide, slimy at low. The toxic river water compounded disease. Some relief came from the local Powhatan Indians. Their gifts of food saved the settlers from total starvation. Then in December of 1607, Captain John Smith was captured by a Powhatan hunting party and marched to the capital of the Powhatan chiefdom, Werowocomoco. According to Smith's telling of events, tribesmen dragged him to a pair of stones before Chief Powhatan. One native raised his club to beat Smith's head. Then the chief's 11-year-old daughter, Pocahontas, intervened. She laid her own head on his. Her father brought an end to the ritual and commuted Smith's death sentence. When, in January of 1608, Christopher Newport returned to Jamestown with fresh settlers and supplies, only about 38 of the original colonists had survived. In September that same year, Smith was elected as the colony's president. He instituted a new rule: "He that will not work shall not eat." The men planted crops, dug a well, and traded with the Indians for food. Under Smith's strict leadership, few of the settlers died. His firm hand, however, grew unpopular. In the fall of 1609, Smith lay asleep aboard a boat on the river when his gunpowder bag exploded. He suffered a severe burn. Shortly afterward, he was deposed from the presidency, left Jamestown forever, and returned to England. In the winter of 1609 to 1610, the colonists' rations ran dangerously low. It became known as the starving time. Settlers resorted to eating horse meat, dogs, cats, and shoe leather. According to George Percy, who succeeded John Smith as president, now famine beginning to look ghastly and pale in every face, nothing was spared to maintain life and to do those things that seem incredible. Even the dead were not spared. Disease compounded starvation. By early 1610, 80 to 90% of the 500 settlers had died. Then new settlers arrived. Among them was John Rolfe. In 1612, he planted a new type of tobacco seed from the West Indies. The lucrative exportation of tobacco that followed would save the Jamestown colony. In 1614, Rolfe married Pocahontas, Chief Powhatan's daughter. Their union fostered a time of peace between the natives and the settlers. Between 1619 and 1620, 3 formative events took place in Jamestown. First, the Virginia colonists elected representatives to the House of Burgesses. It was the first representative body of the colonial era and the beginning of representative government in America. Shortly after this election, an English privateer sold more than 20 black Angolans to the Jamestown settlers in exchange for food. He had stolen them from a Portuguese slave ship. It is not clear whether the Angolans were treated as slaves or indentured servants. Legal slavery would not be recognized in Virginia until a little more than 4 decades later. Finally, late in 1619, 90 young women sailed to Jamestown. They arrived in early 1620. These women were not sold to the men in the colony but married them of their own free will. Their new husbands, however, did pay the Virginia Company for their wives' dowries and travel expenses in tobacco. The new wives were dubbed tobacco brides. Their arrival signaled a permanence to the English presence in America as families began to form. As more settlements were established, Jamestown served as the capital and seat of government in Virginia. By 1699, Williamsburg absorbed both responsibilities. In 1907, the 300th anniversary of the founding of Jamestown was celebrated in Norfolk, Virginia. It was called the Jamestown Exposition. Among the dignitaries on hand were Mark Twain and Booker T. Washington. The 26th President of the United States, Theodore Roosevelt, spoke at the opening ceremonies. We end this episode with images from that historic celebration of the Jamestown settlers.